Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Maurice Lacroix Masterpece Lune Retrograde 46mm in stainless steel, one of only 250 made in a limited edition. This Maurice Lacroix is, like all the watches featured on our YouTube channel, actual stock available for immediate purchase and delivery on our retail website, watchyouwant.com. And if you like getting the latest news, views, and reviews of luxury watches in video format, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now you can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters. This is a very large watch that kind of splits genres and splits classes, straddling both the formal watch and arguably the sports watch category. It is 10 ATM water resistant with a highly technical look. It also has pared down lugs. Although dramatically curved, horizontally you can see well from this angle, they don't extend that far from the edge of the wrist to the edge of the wrist. At its extremities, this watch is pared down to fit a smaller wrist. Now my wrist being fairly small, you can see from overhead, this Maurice Lacroix is just kissing the outer edges of my wrist. So if you have a wrist size similar to mine, rest assured you'd be able to wear this watch comfortably with very little, if any, overlap. And you can see that the strap, because it is flexible and non-conforming in its shape, it does pull down straight for a nice secure fit and stance on the wrist. Now the watch is fairly thick, being almost 16mm thick. It's about 15.5. And perhaps the only real impediment to slipping under a dress cuff, because as thick as it is, it doesn't feel or look thick, but it does have a little bit of an outcropping to its bezel, and its rounded case form does actually flare out a little bit from its base where it contacts the wrist to the edge of the bezel itself. So while the tightest of dress cuffs might not get along with this one, most long sleeves should be just fine. Now the watch has a lot to recommend it, first and foremost because the mass is nicely balanced. A full skeletonized dial, a full display case back, nice spare and heavily curved lugs, and a flexible strap provide good fit, and a substantial bolstered alligator and calfskin strap provides a good counterweight to the mass of the case, as does a superb trigger-actuated deployant clasp. Now this is a beautifully finished piece, and it's worth mentioning that Maurice Lacroix, since its inception in 1975, has produced its own clasps and cases. So what you're getting here is all content from the watchmaker itself, not subsidiary suppliers. It's worth mentioning that although established in 1975 as Maurice Lacroix, the company's roots date back to the early 20th century, and like others, including Panerai and Bucherer, Maurice Lacroix started as a retailer of high-end watches, first as the Desco Group. By the 1960s, they'd acquired production facilities. By 1975, Maurice Lacroix was born, and the 1990s gave birth to the Masterpece series, of which this is one of the most, quite honestly, scintillating installments. This was actually a candidate in the 2009 Geneva Grand Prix de Haute Horlogerie, and it was in the design watch category. So let's unpack the elements of the design that made this watch a Grand Prix contestant. Now the bottom line is, you can see it looks like a machine in progress. It has a skeletonized dial with multiple treatments, alternately brushed, polished. You can see ruthenium coating the elements on the center and flared edges right under my thumbs of the dial itself. And then you can see the base of the dial and below it to the movement plates itself. Now looking past the movement plates, you can see that they've got almost a blackened look that's actually darker than the ruthenium of the solid dial elements, and that's a black gold mixture that Maurice Lacroix uses to uniquely treat its in-house movements. So it makes for a dramatic contrast with the brushed silvered elements of the retrograde date right here, or the power reserve scale right here, or the hour track around the outer circumference. So there's a lot of different colors, textures, and several different depth of field concepts at play here. You can see a very avant-garde, sort of silvered reflective moon phase right here at 6 o'clock at the center of a radial day indication. I'd have to say that this watch, more than any other, almost reminds me of some sort of machine that's under construction, in progress. It's a huge, round, sort of half-finished piece of technology. That's the vibe I'm getting. And if you squint, you might even see a little bit of the unfinished Death Star from Return of the Jedi. I know I'm definitely getting that vibe from that moon phase with its segmented face and its reflective finish. Maybe. The bottom line is, this is a watch that sets the imagination racing because it does seem to bend genres. It has some lines about its case with these gorgeous beveled lugs, the contrasting brushed and polished finishes, the traditional round form that are evocative of a dress watch. But then you see this dial, and you see an almost technically inspired moon phase, the aggressive skeletonization, the multiple indications with a day, retrograde date, an unconventional moon phase at 6 o'clock, a power reserve indication, and you see that unique black gold base beneath ruthenium and brushed metal with applied metal elements. All of those Arabic numerals are applied, by the way, on the hour track, and it is loomed like a sports watch. It has the proportions of a sports watch, and thanks to a rather brilliant half-twist crown, that's right, the crown locks with only a half-twist. Just like that, you get 10 ATM of water resistance. So there are elements of a sports watch here too, and that in spite of a unique system of adjusters for the date. Now I want to show you a little bit of how those adjusters function from a practical perspective. Let's advance the watch, just to make sure we're not in the date change zone, and then let's go to the complications themselves. Now the watch features first a double adjuster right here at the case flank at 4 o'clock. One of them adjusts the day, and the other adjusts the moon phase. So that's fairly straightforward, and also remarkably low profile. It's not inconvenient and inaccessible like the dimple adjusters you see on some more traditional pieces, but it's also not a high profile piece. You can see from dead on, you can barely see the corners of the adjusters peeking out. They maintain a remarkably low aesthetic profile, and they don't disrupt the lines of the case. And then of course over here you can see the adjustment for the retrograde date, and you can see how it fills alternating windows along its span as it adjusts through its full range of motion before finally reaching the end of its travel and a retrograde snap back to the beginning of the month. It's a technical look, and it's a fine execution of an ambitious concept that blends those two genres of the sports watch and the dress watch. And you can even see, while the case is round, its proportions are large and modern. It has a unique sort of compound curvature, curved around, but also curved from top to bottom, and it features two pronounced flanges at the bezel and at the base that add tremendous character, strength, and definition. There's no part of this watch that looks sheer or unfinished. There's no part of it that looks just like negative, ill-conceived space. Everything has a beautiful brushing. Everything is curved in at least one direction, has a character line to distinguish it, has a contrasting finish, a unique artistic or technical flourish. This is a well-conceived watch, and it's no wonder that this watch was a design prize candidate in 2009. Now, turning the watch over, you can see a variant of the caliber ML150 family of movements that Maurice Lacroix debuted in 2008. This evolution, the ML152 of 2009, is based on the Unitas 6498 family, but that's not to say that it's a finished debauch. Instead, it's actually the gear train design and the general geometry of the movement that's inspired by the Unitas. The actual engineering, the fabrication, and the finishing is all Maurice Lacroix in-house. Now, it features some unique elements. For one thing, instead of the multiple bridges of the Unitas movement, there's a single large 3/4 plate pocket watch style. You can also see unique graining, a radial graining pattern with a little bit of a spiral eccentric to the crown and the ratchet wheels, rhodium plated. The rest of the movement is actually plated with what's known as black gold, a Maurice Lacroix special and exclusive. Now, there is an interesting contrast in all of the jewel sinks thanks to polishing of that black gold finish for a sort of anglaise shine around all of those violet pivot jewels, and just a hint of the gold and brass center wheel peeking out at the middle. You can also see a beautiful polished swan's neck regulator. The beat is a stately 2.5 hertz or 18,000 vibrations per hour. Again, pocket watch style, and it's a wonderful thing to hold up to your ear because it has a charming, almost vintage cadence to it. And when you look at it, you get a better look at the palette, the escape wheel, and that huge balance in action. With the screwed down swan's neck regulator, the fine adjustment can't be thrown out of whack or out of sequence by shocks to the watch. So again, you see an element that's very well adapted to the life of a sports watch. 100 meters water resistant, 330 feet. That's equivalent to a Rolex Twin Lock Explorer 2 or GMT Master 2, for example. So if you do put this watch on some sort of textile or rubber strap, it's absolutely safe to get wet, provided you screw down the crown first and don't use the pushers. Now, this movement does have a 42-hour power reserve. It's got a beautiful finish, all things considered, an excellent value, and purchase pre-owned, it's even better. The bottom line is that this is a unique combination of a manufacture movement with a distinctive finish, a look that's quite honestly one of a kind and evocative of almost nothing else. The Masterpece series really made Maurice Lacroix what it is today, and this is one of the most memorable entries in that series. With an in-house movement, a manufactured case and clasp, a beautiful distinctive look, unconventional finish, and quality that's really manifest under scrutiny and on the wrist, this Maurice Lacroix Masterpece Lune Retrograde, 46mm in stainless steel, one of 250 made, just may be the watch you want.